Okay, welcome back guys. So we're going to do a quick video here on chapters 13 and 14. I'm just going to point out a few things here. Not as close of reading as some of the other sections, but just so you can sort of orient yourself, what are the main ideas. We're not really going to deal with anything inside of chapter 13, but I'll just point out the main conflict in chapter 13 is between Atticus and Aunt Alexandra. So conflict between Atticus and Aunt Alexandra, his sister. And she's come to live with them to help out while Atticus is under pressure during the court case. And she wants to sort of determine certain behaviors of the children and certain beliefs, and to sort of hold up the family honor. And that family honor is related to family heritage. So heritage means like your family's background and history, and she thinks, you know, the Finches should be a good family, so you have to behave a certain way and you have to hold up the family name. And she tries to get Atticus to tell the children, you know, that they have to behave in a certain way. And he does tell them, but he feels weird about it and awkward, and he eventually says, like, forget about it. Now, we have to put this in the context, okay, about Atticus. You have to think about Atticus is a widower, okay? He's a widower. It means his wife died, right? So there's a kind of motherlessness in the home. So who's the mother really, though, taking care of the kids? Calpurnia is basically the mother figure. She's disciplining them and teaching them and so on. And so there's going to be conflict between Aunt Alexandra and Atticus on how to discipline his kids and teach them and how they behave and things like that. And then there's also a conflict between Aunt Alexandra and Calpurnia, because she's living in the home. You don't really need Calpurnia. So those are somewhat secondary issues. I mean, we can't cover everything in crazy detail. So that's the main conflict in terms of this chapter 13. Got some raccoons outside of my window making some noise. So if you hear some funny sounds, those are baby raccoons outside of my house. In chapter 14, I want to just focus in on Dill a little bit. So remember, Dill was a storyteller. He loves theater. He loves drama. He loves going to the movies. He loves creating plays and stories about Boo Radley. He loves Dracula and Gothic stories. And so what happens is, one night, Scout notices something under her bed. And all right, guess it's just skipped ahead there. Sorry, guys. Let me scroll back down. So Scout notices something under her bed, and she thinks it's a snake. And she comes and asks Jem, you know, what's under my bed? And Jem comes and checks it out, swipes under the bed. Do snakes grunt? It ain't a snake. It's somebody. So who's under the bed? It's Dill. And he's been hiding under the bed. And he comes out. And they're going to find out, like, what's going on here. So, hey, he says. Jem petitioned God again. I was speechless. I'm about to perish, said Dill. Got anything to eat? So Dill's hungry. He hasn't eaten for a while, apparently, but he's unexpectedly shown up under Scout's bed. He's not supposed to be here. Dill just visits usually in the summer vacation. Okay, but he seems to be back where he's supposed to be with his family. Now, Dill's background, okay, you have divorce and remarriage in the picture with Dill. So his father remarried and now he has a stepmom, right? So you have a broken family situation with Dill. Okay, and he's very young. He's about 7 or 8. So, you know, we have to think, like, what does an event like this do in a child's mind, and how do they deal with that trauma and that pain? They may have different coping mechanisms. Let's say coping mechanisms or strategies. And that's natural. It's a way to, you know, not be crushed by the emotional damage done by this traumatic event in the family. So we're going to see a little bit about Dill's style here of dealing with it. In a dream, I went to the kitchen. I brought him back some milk and half a pan of cornbread left over from supper. Dill devoured it, chewing with his front teeth, as was his custom. I finally found my voice. How'd you get here? By an involved route. Refreshed by food, Dill recited this narrative. Notice the storytelling aspect. Dill, the storyteller, the creator, the imaginative one. So he recited his narrative. Having been bound in chains and left to die in the basement, there were basements in Meridian, by his new father, who disliked him. So sorry, he has a stepfather. I mixed that up. His mom remarried. By his new father, who disliked him and secretly kept alive on raw field peas by a passing farmer who heard his cries for help. The good man poked a bushel pod by pod through the ventilator. Dill worked himself free by pulling the chains from the wall. Still in wrist manacles, he wandered 2 miles out of Meridian, where he discovered a small animal show and was immediately engaged to wash the camel. He traveled with the show all over Mississippi until his infallible sense of direction told him he was in Abbott County, Alabama, just across the river from Macomb. He walked the rest of the way. How'd you get here? Asked Jem. So, notice, it's all imagination. It's all fake. Storytelling. Okay? It's creative. When he's telling his story and thinking about his life, he does a way of imagination and to escape through stories. Okay? So we can say escapism is the need to escape through stories. You know, maybe you Netflix binge to escape reality and pain. Okay? Escapism. That's going to be a really important thing because Dill represents the way of dealing with hard things in life and reality. His way of coping is escapism. And we're going to see after the trial, Dill reacts differently, Jem reacts differently, and Scout reacts in another way. But this creative storytelling is a roundabout way of Dill dealing with his negative emotions. Okay? So Jem knows he's not telling the truth, right? How'd you really get here? He had taken $13 from his mother's purse, caught the 9 o'clock Meridian, and got off at Macomb Junction. He had walked 10 or 11 of the 14 miles to Macomb off the highway in the scrub bushes, lest the authorities be seeking him, and had ridden the remainder of the way, clinging to the backboard of a cotton wagon. He had been under the bed. For 2 hours, he thought. He had heard us in the dining room, and the clink of forks on plates nearly drove him crazy. He thought Jem and I would never go to bed. He had considered emerging and helping me beat Jem, as Jem had grown far taller, but he knew Mr. Finch would break it up soon, so he thought it best to stay where he was. He was worn out, dirty beyond belief, and home. There's the real story of his journey, okay? So he has escaped from home as well. So, you know, notice that his storytelling about his life involved the stepfather treating him badly in the fake, you know, version of his life. Now I'm just going to skip down toward the end of the chapter here and just highlight a couple more things. So Scout asks here, Dill, you ain't telling me right. Your folks couldn't do without you. They must be mean to you. Tell you what to do about that. Dill's voice went on steadily in darkness. The thing is, what I'm trying to say is they do get on a lot better without me. I can't help them any. They ain't mean. They buy me everything I want. But it's now, you've got to go play with it. You've got a room full of things. I got you that book, so go read it. Dill tried to deepen his voice. You're not a boy. Boys get out and play baseball with other boys. They don't hang around the house, worrying their folks. Dill's voice was his own again. Oh, they ain't mean. They kiss you and hug you good night and good morning and goodbye and tell you they love you. Scout, let's get us a baby. Where? There was a man Dill had heard of who had a boat that he rowed across to a foggy island where all the babies were. You could order one. That's a lie. Auntie said God drops them down the chimney. At least that's what I think she said. For once, Auntie's diction had not been too clear. Well, that ain't so. You get babies from each other, but there's this man too. He has all these babies just waiting to wake up. He breathes life into them. Dill was off again. Beautiful things floated around his dreamy head. He could read 2 books to my 1, but he preferred the magic of his own inventions. He could add and subtract faster than lightning, but he preferred his own twilight world. A world where babies slept, waiting to be gathered like morning lilies. He was slowly talking himself to sleep and taking me with him, but in the quietness of his foggy island, there rose the faded image of a gray house with sad brown doors. Dill, why do you reckon Boo Radley's never run off? Dill sighed a long sigh and turned away from me. Maybe he doesn't have anywhere to run off to. All right, so again, right, this fantastical fantasy story reality, right, a false reality that he's creating. Why? Well, his parents buy him stuff, but there's a lack of real relationship and love. Now, it also is a situation where the parents are newlyweds. The father has remarried, he's starting a new life, but he has Dill, and they want to be alone together. And so they're telling him, you know, don't hang around the house. But in reality, he's craving love. He's craving real relationship and parental involvement, but not really getting it. So what does he do? Escape to the fantasy world of his own mind. Create your own reality, your own stories, right? So he wants a new story. He wants a new life. Because he's unhappy in his existing one. It's not ideal. Okay, so keep this all in mind, right? This is very important in terms of the characterization of Dill. And this sort of storytelling, escapism, fantasy, fake reality, running away is all key to Dill's character, and it's going to be a foil or a contrast reaction after the trial. Okay, so Dill's going to come back after the trial, and we're going to see another character named Dolphus Raymond, who's going to be important to Dill and Dill's reaction to the trial. So there we have a bit of a portrait of Dill.